What happens when a CEO, disguised as an ordinary passenger, stands up to a prejudiced pilot and changes an entire industry with one quiet act of justice? Jared Parks, the 41-year-old CEO of one of the largest airlines in the country, had always preferred to remain out of the public eye. To truly understand how his company operated, he needed to experience it firsthand, not as a boss, but as a regular passenger. So Jared bought a ticket on his own airline, blending in as a business traveler, complete with a briefcase filled with crucial paperwork. Among the documents was the termination notice for one particular employee, Captain Frank Winters, a 45-year-old pilot notorious for his prejudiced attitude toward colleagues, especially black employees. Jared's plan was simple: observe how his staff interacted with customers, how they felt about their work environment, and how his employees treated each other. Upon boarding the plane, Jared's eyes immediately landed on Captain Winters, who looked him up and down with an air of condescension. "New passenger, huh? Let's see what kind of guy you are," the pilot sneered. Jared chose to remain silent, maintaining his calm demeanor as Winters continued to belittle him. When the pilot grabbed his briefcase and started rummaging through the papers, he had no idea it would be the last mistake he ever made. Jared calmly responded, "Give it back. That's illegal." But Winters ignored him. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation. As Captain Winters rifled through Jared's briefcase, his smirk grew wider, expecting to find something that would give him leverage. But instead, he pulled out the termination letter, a document that had Jared's name as the new owner of the airline. The pilot's face drained of color as he processed what he had just uncovered. The realization hit him hard. The very man he had been mocking was now his boss. Jared remained composed, his eyes never leaving the pilot's face. "Give it back!" Jared's voice was firm, yet calm, a stark contrast to the pilot's panic. The entire cabin fell silent. Every passenger was watching, some already pulling out their phones to record what was happening. The realization began to dawn on Winters, but it was too late. The moment had come. Jared stood there still, as the seconds stretched, feeling the weight of the situation shift. Winters, once full of bravado, now looked utterly lost. "I'm the new owner of this airline," Jared said quietly, his words carrying the power of inevitability. "And you, sir, are fired." The passengers were stunned into silence, but the tension in the air was palpable. Winters stood motionless, staring at Jared, unable to fathom how quickly everything had unraveled. There was no outburst, no rage from Jared. He simply made the decision, and now it was done. The pilot, once confident and untouchable, stood in front of the passengers, humiliated, as they began to film the encounter. His arrogance had just cost him his career. Jared's calm handling of the situation became a lesson in power, integrity, and the quiet authority of leadership. As the video went viral, the reactions flooded in, with people praising Jared for taking a stand against the toxic behavior that had lingered too long in the airline industry. For Jared, though, this was just the beginning. The road to real change was far from over. The video of Jared's calm confrontation with the pilot spread like wildfire. Within hours, it was everywhere, on social media, in news outlets, and across discussions in offices, living rooms, and bars. Jared, a man who had purposefully stayed out of the spotlight, was now the face of a movement. But for him, this was far from the end. It was only the beginning of a transformation he had planned for his airline. A transformation that went deeper than firing one bad apple. As Jared sat down to meet with his partners, the weight of the moment was clear. This wasn't just about a single employee, it was about reshaping the culture of an entire company. "We need to rethink everything," he began, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "From the top to the bottom, this company is in desperate need of change." His voice was calm but firm, carrying the conviction of someone who had made up his mind long before the meeting began. Jared was determined to break down the walls of complacency and intolerance that had built up over years. "It's time to build an airline that's about more than just flights," he continued. "We need a culture of respect, inclusivity, and ethics. We're not just delivering passengers from point A to point B, we're creating an environment where people want to work, not one where they have to." The changes Jared envisioned weren't going to be easy, but they were necessary. He set up mandatory training programs on diversity, inclusion, and sensitivity, ensuring that every employee, no matter their role, understood that respect and equality weren't optional. The resistance from some employees was palpable, but Jared wasn't deterred. Slowly but surely, his vision began to take root. As the months passed, the company's culture started to shift. The toxic behaviors, like the pilots, were being weeded out, and employees began working better together. What had once been a company plagued with controversies was now becoming a model of progress, with customers and employees alike praising the changes Jared was implementing. What Jared had started with a single act of courage had become a revolution, one that would transform not just his company, but the entire industry. As Jared's airline began to garner attention for its new values of inclusivity and respect, the world outside his company took notice. Social media exploded with positive comments, applauding his courage and leadership. People hailed him as a hero, a symbol of fairness in a world that too often seemed to reward the status quo. But for Jared, the spotlight wasn't something he craved. It was simply the result of doing what was right. With every passing day, it became clearer that Jared's decision to overhaul the company's culture was not just about public image. It was about genuine change. The success stories were starting to roll in. Employees who had once been resistant to the new culture were now embracing it. Complaints from passengers about poor service and rude staff members began to drop, while positive feedback surged. But Jared knew there was still more work to be done. "This is only the start," he reminded his partners in one of their meetings. "We've changed the environment for the better, but we can't stop now. We have to be more than just a company that doesn't tolerate discrimination. We need to be the company that sets the standard." Determined not to let the momentum slip away, Jared pushed forward with additional changes. He introduced new mentorship programs for underrepresented groups within the company, aiming to break down barriers and ensure that employees from all backgrounds had the support they needed to thrive. Despite the resistance from a few, the majority of employees were beginning to believe in the vision Jared was creating. They saw that this was about more than just getting rid of a few bad apples. It was about creating a company culture where everyone could rise regardless of their race, gender, or background. As the months went on, it became evident that Jared's efforts weren't just making his airline a better place to work. They were making it a better place for everyone who flew with him. The company was no longer just another name in the airline industry. It was becoming a leader in workplace equality, a symbol of what could happen when a company decided to truly take care of its people. Jared's resolve was unwavering. The change within the company wasn't just about a single incident. It was part of a bigger picture, a complete transformation in the way business was done. As the months passed, he remained laser-focused on one thing: creating a company that put its employees and customers first. His actions were leading to a ripple effect, and it was clear that the shift he had sparked would leave a lasting imprint on the airline industry. At a crucial company meeting, Jared stood in front of his partners, making it clear that they needed to rethink everything. "This isn't just about public image," he said. "We are changing the foundation of this company. The old ways of doing things, where respect was optional and people were treated poorly because of their race or background, are gone." His voice was firm, yet calm, as he laid out his vision for a company that would become a model for others to follow. "We need to redefine what it means to be a leader in this industry. Our values will shape the way we operate. It's time we build a place where respect and decency are not just encouraged, they are mandatory." The partners looked at each other, unsure at first. Change wasn't always easy, and there were still some skeptics. But Jared's determination was contagious. Soon they were on board, and they began to implement policies that would make Jared's vision a reality. His commitment to inclusivity and respect was reflected in the hiring practices, employee training programs, and customer service standards that were rolled out across the company. But Jared's impact extended beyond his company. In the media, people spoke of him as an innovator, a trailblazer in the fight for fairness and respect in corporate America. Airlines that had once been riddled with issues now looked to his company as the gold standard. Competitors, once quick to dismiss his efforts as idealistic, now faced the challenge of keeping up. Jared's company had set a new bar, one that demanded attention, and soon other industries began looking to follow his lead. The real victory wasn't just in changing policies, it was in the lives he had touched. Employees felt safer and more valued. Passengers saw a shift in the quality of service they received, and the public began to see that Jared wasn't just a businessman. He was a leader who understood that progress came not from making quick fixes, but from creating lasting, meaningful change. As time went on, the airline's reputation flourished. Complaints dropped, and satisfaction soared. Jared had successfully turned the company into a symbol of inclusivity, fairness, and respect. The journey was far from over, but with each passing day, it became clear that Jared Parks had not only changed his company, he had changed an entire industry. Months after the pilot incident and the viral video that followed, the transformation within Jared's airline was becoming undeniable. Employees, once skeptical about the new direction, were now beginning to see the benefits of the changes that had been implemented. The culture that Jared had set out to create was taking root, and the results were clear in the improved morale, the better teamwork, and the increased customer satisfaction. Jared continued to be hands-on, ensuring that the new training programs for diversity, inclusion, and respect were not just optional seminars, but essential parts of every employee's development. His initiative brought about something entirely new, a workplace environment where people felt like they mattered, where they could voice concerns without fear of retribution, and where differences in race, gender, and background were embraced instead of dismissed. For the first time, employees didn't dread coming to work. There was no more fear of walking into an office where their voice didn't count, or worrying about being undermined by toxic coworkers. Instead, there was a sense of community, a shared vision for a workplace where respect was as important as productivity. The company had started to feel more like a family, one that supported its members and celebrated each person's unique contributions. As the company's internal culture improved, so did its external reputation. Customers who had once been wary of flying with the airline now saw it as a model of fairness and customer service. Jared had managed to transform the airline from a company plagued by internal problems and public controversies to one that stood out as an example of integrity and innovation. The press started to take notice, hailing the company's turnaround as a success story, and other airlines were forced to take a hard look at their own practices. For Jared, though, the real reward wasn't the praise or the media attention. It was the lives that had been improved, his employees who could now come to work without fear, the customers who felt valued and respected, and the broader industry that had been forced to reconsider its own values and practices. It wasn't just a personal victory for Jared. It was a victory for everyone involved in his company, from the flight attendants to the janitors, from the ground crew to the executives. They were all part of the change. The true significance of Jared's transformation came into sharper focus during a company-wide celebration. As he stood before his team, acknowledging their hard work and commitment to the new vision, he realized that the change had become permanent. There was no going back to the way things were. This was a new chapter for the company, one where every single PERS,